And the core values guide everything that goes on in your school. And so if you don't know what you value and what you believe, it's kind of hard for everything else to fall in place. It may look different in every single school because every school or every organization is different, but the guideposts are going to be the same. Like in every institution, you need to have core values. That's principle number one. And everybody needs to be involved in creating those core values. And so you may go about it in a different way, but everybody should have them.
Welcome to another episode of the Communities of Character podcast. I'm Jennifer Hogan, a former character coach for the Hope Institute and a current high school principal, and I am so grateful for you tuning in with me today. Because today I'll be your host for this episode on core values. That's right, it's just me today. And I have a special compilation of experts and practitioners that's focused on core values in schools. This episode is to re-energize you and give you a mental push to keep the main thing the main thing. So before you hear from the experts, let's talk about core values in general. Core values are a clearly identified set of beliefs or values that an organization holds to be true, but that you use as a benchmark or compass for your decisions and actions. They're the guiding principles for behavior, and they can also help evaluate whether an organization is on the right path. So the goal for this episode is to reframe core values in a way that highlights how the dedication to them matters so much. So before we get into this incredible lineup of experts, I want you to think of the core values of your school organization and think about how those attributes are championed and lived out in your organization. Now let's get to this masterclass compilation kicked off by Dr. Kara Chism. Enjoy.
And so what are some of the best practices for schools when they're determining their core values?
That is a great question, and there's so many different ways of doing that depending on the age of the students. And the size of the school. All of those things have an impact. There was one large high school, and they were trying to determine how are we going to figure out our core values. And they wanted the students to have input. And when you have almost 2,000 students, that's a lot of input to get and a lot of data that you're going to have. And so the faculty selected 25 that they thought might be good ones, and then they put them on a Google form and sent them out to students. And during an advisory period, the students ranked the top 5 or 6 that they thought really demonstrated values that their school had. And then from that, a list of core values was narrowed down. And then they selected the top 5 based on that. And so it gave everybody in the school the opportunity to have input in an organized way. And then as far as getting parents and community involved, and another school had just posters up in the room and said, write down what you value at this school. And so they just kind of made a chart and a list of those, and they discussed those, and they took the key ones back to the faculty, and then the faculty had done the same thing. And so they were able to say, okay, this is what our stakeholders value, this is what we value, these are some things that are important in our school. One way that I've seen a lot of schools use this is they'll just all on little sticky notes write what they value, one value per sticky note. And then as a small team of 5 or 6, they will group them into categories. And then they'll get with another group of 5 or 6 people and group those until they come up with 5 or 6 values for their school. And that seems to work as well. I think any process that you use to get everyone's input is great, and it will be determined on the size of your school and how many students that you have. For example, a smaller school, if you've got a faculty of 30, you could probably do that in one setting. If you have 150 people, then you're going to need to do them in small chunks and put all their information together. So there's a variety of ways to do it, but that are all effective.
And I heard you say that character education is like investing. You said if you invest for a quarter, you're in trouble. And if you invest for the long run, you're going to be successful. Would you talk more about that analogy?
Well, my view on that was that it's not going to happen overnight. And if it's one thing that Marvin Berkowitz and the work that they've done out in St. Louis and Tom Lacona's work is it takes time to do this. In some ways, we have to realize that this is not a walk, it's a journey. And how do we begin looking at ourselves as role models? How do we begin building relationships with communities of how important this is? And then how do we begin changing what we do with students, not to control them, but to develop them? And that takes time. Development is slow. Controlling can be quick, but development and internalizing that and making it intrinsic rather than extrinsic takes time. And in some ways, you're changing school cultures. I was in one school where I saw a teacher running down the hall to give some kids their rewards for doing something right in class that day. And when I started paying attention to that, I found out more and more people were doing stuff like this to try to control kids. So developing kids is about changing your culture. And it takes time to do that. But we do know now, with all the research that's going on, what works. We understand what seems to work well, and also to realize we're never going to hit perfection in this. And if I can throw out one other idea, I have often thought that and I've seen so many organizations package character education as a program. Well, this year's program is next year's shelf fodder. If you talk to administrators, teachers, and others, when somebody comes up with the latest and best program, you might as well be getting ready for the next one, because you're not building within the ethos or life of the building. It becomes something we add on. And there is no time to add anything on to schools now, what schools have to do. So it has to be included in who we are as educators, and also how we bring our community and our students along with us.
Absolutely. Well said. It does take time. It is definitely a process. There is no magic wand.
No.
Yeah, something that we like to say at the Hope Institute is that it can't be an add-on. Character education can't be an add-on because educators already have so much on their plates. And so what we like to say is that character education is the plate. Based on your years of experience and working with schools, what suggestions do you have for educators to help make developing character the plate?
Well, I really like that analogy, and I used to use that too and say basically the same thing, is that character education is not another thing on your plate, it is the plate. It's what everything falls down on. Who am I as a person? What do I want to be as an educator? How do I want to strive to that? Knowing full well I'm going to have some days that are better than others.
We were like, how are we going to make it so that our students and our community really know what our core values are? And so SPARKS is the acronym. The S stands for self-control, the P for perseverance, the A for acceptance, R for respect, the K for kindness, and the S for service. And so within that realm, we use it within our daily classroom meetings, focusing on a core value a month. We find it in teachable moments and every day that come up, always taking it back to our SPARKS. We use it as modeling not only the adults, but students, and being positive role models. And then we find ways to serve wherever we are, whether it's in academics, special areas, any of our special programs. Everything, all roads lead back to our Be the We Creed and our SPARKS. And so it's a part of everything that we do. And one of the last parts that we always remind kids, and takes us back to our daily announcements, is that this is who we are, even when no one is watching. And so anything that happens around we, which we call we in being Woodridge Elementary, really encompasses our SPARKS.
Well, I'll tell you, I did my research on your school before our conversation today, and just to see how, like you said, it is woven through everything. I mean, I saw that infused in everything that's happening in your school, and it's incredible. And I like how you said that your interest in character education started when you joined the Alamo Heights Independent School District. And I love the mission statement for your district because it states that you will educate and empower every student to excel academically and as a confident, compassionate citizen with impeccable character. Now, I've read a lot of mission statements, but I do not read too many mission statements that mention character, nor that are as bold as this one. How do you feel about this mission statement, and how does Woodridge Elementary fulfill its purpose as stated in the mission statement?
Everything that we do goes back to our mission statement. And I mean, who we are is we are the heart of our community. We are the heart of our community whose passion is excellence. What do? We educate and empower every student, every single student, to be, academically confident and compassionate citizens. And how we do it is through creating these engaging, personally challenging, and relevant experiences. And this frames each piece of the work that we do within our campus, not only within our campus, but within our district. So, our character development works completely alongside our mission statement and ties in also to our profile of a learner, which sets forth the attributes that we want students to have upon graduation. And that it then develops our different attributes, which are develop healthy sense of self, communicate and collaborate, employ skills for life, seek knowledge and understanding, and think critically and creatively, and with all of that, engage socially and globally. And so at Woodridge, academic and character education, they're not separate pathways. We have like a character at a glance that ties together our profile, our creed. We have a monthly character traits that we hone in on, and with campus-wide initiatives and implementing and incorporating service opportunities. And so we have a document that we share with our faculty and our staff to be proactive and integrating character each and every day into their class routines and within their lessons. And our master schedule, we intentionally set aside 20 minutes a day for class meetings that tie back into our mission, our creed. Do you see where I'm going with this, and our profile?
Absolutely.
So that it's all connected. And our staff has access to different materials that are related to our monthly character trait. And so everything leads back to our mission of our district, and being able to have those engaging and personally challenging and relevant experience so that we can develop confident and compassionate citizens, because ultimately that's our goal. We want our students to be good people when they leave us.
I mean, I hear you say that you had those conversations and did the deep dive, but how did you take those steps to make those core values so strongly embedded in your school culture?
Well, I mean, it's simple, but it's not simple. It has to drive every decision that you have. So every decision that the school makes has to be to better the lives of the boys and girls that walk through the halls. That's the bottom line. And in schools, we can't make decisions for convenience. We can't make decisions because it's unpopular. We've got to do what's best for the boys and girls. And sometimes those decisions may be a little harsh. Maybe we may not understand them, but as long as we keep them up front, when that's the boys and girls that walk through our hall, we'll definitely be in a great place. But we just looked at what we were doing. And is this something that I would like for my personal children's school to do? And how are we supporting education? And how are we getting close to our goal of creating this culture of learning? And a lot of schools like to throw in their mission statement, lifelong learners. Well, you can't be a lifelong learner if you hate school.
Yeah.
So by becoming a lifelong learner, you've got to present those opportunities so that you can ensure that learning takes place after school. And we saw that our attendance numbers, we were averaging like 95% attendance and above at a high school. And we were like, whoa. Now, tardies was another thing. Now, they didn't want to get on time. But just to be able to have the shift in attendance was huge, because that meant kids wanted to be there because it was a place long. And that just continued to change the culture over time as you continue to make those decisions. And as a leader, you've got to make sure that everyone that's on your immediate team's on board, and that trickles down. So in those classrooms where teachers are emphasizing and really going forth with the character education, you'll see a deeper connection with the students and the instruction. And that's what we really want in our schools.
Yeah, so that was kind of our beginning phases. Was we had expectations for our school, but as we started the professional development that was so amazing through Hope, we really realized we knew something was wrong, but we didn't really know exactly. We couldn't put our finger on what the piece that was missing, and so we recognized that we really didn't have core values at the center of what we were doing. We had some expectations, we had some positive traits, we had a few values written in our expectations, but nothing was centralized. And so we had great things going on, our character program coming out of our guidance program, what we were doing in the classroom, some great things with team meetings was getting started. Some of the things we did with broadcast and morning announcements and some great events, but nothing was central to those core values. So we recognized early on that everything really pivoted off of getting that piece started. So that it was kind of nice for us to all be on the same page. So we had to start with our staff as our team went through and kind of understood what a value is. We really went back to some of those early PD sessions of what is a value. And so we kind of flipped our faculty meetings. We had the boring after school, once a month faculty meetings that everybody has. Mm-hmm. And we intentionally decided to use that as a time because that's the one time our entire school staff is together. And so we intentionally made that a year-long PLC of really looking at the core values and looking at culture-focused PLCs. And so we looked at value versus vice. We looked at the types and categories of values. We brainstormed lists of appropriate values for the age group that we worked with as a staff, and really went through, kind of turned around some of that PD that we were getting through Hope with our staff and get everybody on a common page. And then we kind of settled in on 20 values that really spoke to us, that really fit this age group of kids. And then we wanted to truly take it back to stakeholders. And I know that sounds like a cliche, but we really felt we needed the input of the students. We needed the input of our community. And so we had also at the same time implemented the house system. And I don't know if some of the other schools have probably done this as well. We've gone to the Ron Clark Academy, looked at some of the ideas that we had gotten out of from there, and really had put the house system in place. It was a great chance for student leadership. And so we were in the middle of revamping our student council anyway. And so we had what's called a house council. And so we pulled those student leaders together and really used them to take these 20 words. We created a survey and we sent it out to our parents. And we started with the question of, when students leave Brock's Gap and they go on to Bumpus, we feed into Bumpus and then feed into Hoover High eventually, what do we want our students to come away from our school really having a grasp? What core values really embody what we want for those students? And so that guiding question, we put in a student-friendly format and presented it to all students in our school. Narrowed that 20 down to, everybody picking their top 5 or 6. We did that with our staff. We did that with our students. And then we sent some videos out using those students, helped them film some videos and presented it to our parents. And so then our staff went back and we kind of compared those lists and found the commonalities. And so we really settled on 4 of them were easy and it just made sense. And then we had to make a couple of decisions, and we looked at the categories of values that we wanted to choose. And it really made a pretty easy decision to come up with our core 5. And so then we went back to defining those. We defined them, as adults, but then we used our students to help us define them from a kid, friendly language. Mm-hmm. And the students in the House Council were pivotal in that. And then we used our broadcast team, our student broadcast team, and we filmed those videos and then sent those back out to the parents with the kids presenting the information. We put it on broadcast so every student had the same message heard. And then we started, infusing it in all the other ways that we do that throughout the school.
as a takeaway, what main piece of advice would you give to someone who's wanting to start with Principal One in their school?
Take the first step. And when you take that first step, go ahead and jump all in, because once you start this work, it will change your life. It will change how you look at education, and it will change the impact that you have on the students. It is scary at times, because there will be people that think, well, you're worried about character education. What about the instruction? And all this plays hand in hand. Years from now, our kids will realize how school made them feel.
Thanks for listening to the Communities of Character podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others and post about it on social media or leave a rating and review. Thanks again and take care.